I would like to introduce another Carey School alumni, Bonnie Justesen, and her Panther Points of Pride video.
Hi, I'm Bonnie. Used to be Yearsley, now Justesen. I've been in Carey for a long time. Started out when my mother came to Carey in 1939 to teach school. And then I came and spent half of the year in the 6th grade, and then I got homesick for Albin, so I went back home until the next year when my mother married Milford Sparks, and I came back to live in Carey. And I've been here ever since. Well, I lived what's called Santa Rosa Lane now, where Milford Sparks' house was. We lived there for quite a few years, and till I was in high school in the 9th grade. And when spring came, the boys were all getting back from the service of World War II, and Keith came along and said he thought we should get married. So on the 8th of September, we went to Elko, Nevada and got married. And then I had to call my mother and tell her I would not be going to school, which she was very upset. So we lived in Salt Lake for a while. But while I was going to school in Carey, we had a lot of fun. I had a lot of good friends. And we had Patterson and Roy Hennifer had an old Army car thing. It didn't have any windows, it didn't have any top, but they were always gathering us up, Reva and Dolores and Lorraine and I, and we would go cave hunting in this old Army Jeep. Of course, it went pretty well out through the craters, out through the lavas, and we did find some very interesting caves. And being as how we had no transportation, we all had bicycles. So we rode everywhere on our bicycles, or we walked, which was not too far. About 3 miles down the road I walked to Lorraine's, and then we'd ride our bicycles everywhere. My Aunt Leola lived down on Sam Payne's ranch, so we'd ride the 7 miles down there. I think Fester Larkins was my favorite teacher. He was a great teacher. He was pretty strict. He got after you if you wasn't doing what you're supposed to. And sometimes I think he even whacked you one if you wasn't doing what you're supposed to, which is not allowed nowadays. And a funny thing happened when I was in the 8th grade. I was standing out on one of the buildings that they moved in, and Joe Carlson said, "I'm going to hit you with this rock." And I said, "You can't possibly throw that rock that far." Well, he did, hit me in the eye, gave me a black eye. I was to sing at the 8th grade graduation in Haley that night, and I had a beautiful black eye for graduation. And those are some of the memories. We had a great basketball team, and we got to go down to play, and our coach got us a room in a motel. And it was kind of not a very good place, and there was a bar down under the street, down below the bottom of the motel. And when we got back, he got in a lot of trouble, which made us all mad because we didn't do anything wrong and we didn't think it was too bad at that time. So we all walked out of school. This is the girls' basketball team. And we got just outside, and my mother caught me and made me go back to school and sit with the 2nd grade. Then we all had to meet with the school board to do our moaning and groaning about what had happened, and I don't remember exactly, but we all went back to school. And it was in the old school And the lunchroom was down in the basement, and my mother's classroom was down in the basement. But we had a lot of good times, or I did, a lot of good friends. So after I was married, we moved back to Carey after a year and lived out Wood River. We rented a place, and then Keith's folks decided to move to Salt Lake, so we bought the ranch and moved up on the ranch where Mildred Barton lives now. And we lived there for quite a while. We, of course, were very poor, and we had to go out of Carey for a while to make a little more money, and then we came back, so we was never gone very long from Carey. Then when Larry and Mary and Trudy when Trudy was old enough to go to the first grade, I got a job at the lunchroom cooking at the school. When we started out cooking, we were in the bottom, in the basement of the old school. Then they moved the buildings in from all the schools outside of town. So the lunchroom was out in one of those buildings. And then they built the new school, and not the one we have now, part of it. So then the lunchroom was back in the school. And I cooked there for 19 years with Jackie Rudd and Karen Young. Then we moved away, stayed for a couple of years, and came back, and I'd lost my job at the lunchroom. So then Keith went to Saudi Arabia and to Libya farming, and I got to go to Saudi Arabia for 3 months, which was very interesting and exciting. And then we came back to Carey, and I went to work at Sun Valley for another 20 years and then just kind of retired. Lost Keith in 2012, lost Mother in 2016, and she was 100. She lacked 3 months of being 102. And so she was in Carey for a long time too, and I'm still here, and I don't think I'll ever go anyplace else. I would stay in school. I missed out a lot by not continuing my education. I had other chances, but I never did take them because of the children and the farming. When you live on a farm, you're always something to do. And the education is very good, especially when you need to find a job. It's always helpful to have something to rely on. Oh, my kids. Larry just turned 70. And he went to college at CSI, and then he got into work. He worked for the county, and he was sprayed the weeds and stuff, and then he went to a convention and gave a talk, and a gentleman there from Wyoming really was impressed, so he had him go to Rawlins, Wyoming, where he was interviewed and got the job as the weed and pest control of Carbon County, which was a large county. And he done that for 38 years, and then he retired. And now they're still living. He married Marilyn Green, and they had 2 children, and then they were divorced, and then he married Judy Peterson. And now their children are grown, and Mary Ann loved to go to college, I guess. She went a lot, and she was taking up theater and acting. And she was in several plays at Pocatello that Keith and I went to. And then she changed her major to take care of the impaired children, and made that her life's work of helping the elderly and those. So she called one day to see if she could bring her class over to Carey to visit us. So I made homemade ice cream and homemade root beer, and those people, they were several different ages. They thought that was the most wonderful thing they'd ever had, and they loved the chickens. And one little boy said, "You know, I'm going to make this ice cream and I'm going to sell it on the street corner." So we were impressed with her children and all the things. And then she went on to work in Pocatello. And she just kept going to school. And she still done a little acting, but her heart was with working with the seniors and in the nursing homes. And she got a job in Oregon. She was asked to go all over the United States and do seminars on taking care of seniors. And that led to a job in Portland, where she went. She had divorced her first husband, but her second husband was a professor, and in the arts. They met in a play. Got her master's, and now she's getting her doctorate in May online from UCLA. So she has been going to school all these years. Her dad told her she would never quit going to college because he paid for college for a long time. But she's very happy, and she's doing very well. And our little Trudy always loved horses. She finally got her own horse when she was about 10, and of course it bucked her off several times, but she got right back on. And then she now has a job of her life. Long love is working with horses every day of the week. And she is now the manager of the arena in Bellevue, the River Sage. So she's very happy. And we had 2 grandchildren, Larry, and then we had 2 grandchildren from Trudy. So we had 4 grandchildren. Mary never had children. Now we have 5 great-grandchildren. We have 2 great-great-granddaughters, which I'm very privileged to be able to tend our little Paisley. And that's, I don't do much else. Well, Mother started teaching in 1938 in the school down in South Carey. It was just across the street from Doris Barton's, right there. And she taught there for 2 years, I believe. She was the janitor and teacher of all the way from the 1st grade to the 8th grade. And then they moved her school building to Carey. And she taught the 2nd grade for 33 years. So she had a lot of people that she taught, and they seemed to like her. One person said she held kids back in those days. And one person told her in his later life was the best thing that ever happened to him because she kept him back and taught him to read and do those things that he hadn't done before. And he had ended up in a very high position with a corporation, so he always was writing her letters and thanking her for all the things that she did for him. And so many people in Carey still remember her as their second grade teacher after 33 years. And then she decided to retire because the children were getting too unruly and she didn't have any control over them. So then she went on 5 missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then she just retired, always had a beautiful garden, always sharing. She worked in that garden until she was 95, I believe, or 96, and she fell. But she was in her house. She'd just been out weeding her garden and weed-eating her yard, which she did very well. And then she came to live with me. In the meantime, Keith had passed away, so I had a room all ready for her, and so she lived with me for 5 years, I believe. And she dearly loved Carey, too. When Keith came back from Saudi Arabia, he ran the sports shop for 13 years until he had a heart attack and had to sell it. But the sports shop was very important to people in Carey. They always had wonderful milkshakes and ice cream cones, and they treated the kids right. They wouldn't let them go back to the bar or anything. They kept them up front. And there was some ladies that would come from out of town just for a milkshake that had quite a history of the milkshakes of the Carey Sports Shop. And the families, I was told, liked to go there and have an ice cream cone after they were in a play or at a ball game, and that was the favorite place to go for ice cream. Also, I have a 5-generation picture, and a couple of years ago we have a 6-generation picture, which some people don't have. So we were lucky in that way that Mother lived long enough to be in our 6th-generation picture. And then I have a love for bowling, and I bowled for about 30 years with several different ladies. They were all very nice. Quite a few of them are no longer with us. We bowled in Ketchum till it burned down, and then we bowled in Shoshone. I bowled with quite a few ladies. Beatrice Minkham was bowled with me, and Lois Stockings and Lois May Stockings, and Aunt Velda and Joyce Park and V. Van Hook and Dorothy Van Hook. A lot of ladies, different teams. Maxine Molyneux bowled with us for a while, and we changed from Ketchum to Shoshone after Ketchum burned down, and then later after they opened the bowling alley in Bellevue, we bowled in Bellevue for quite a while. And we had a great time. We went to a lot of state tournaments, and we done well, especially the one year I got several trophies. I was high in singles, I was high in doubles, we was high in team, and we just had a great time. And of course that all paid off, and so we could go to California, which I had never been to California before, so it was very interesting. And V. Van Hook drove us, and that was Joyce and Velda and Dorothy and V and I. And I miss it, but I don't think I can do it anymore. But I loved it.